Hey, hello. We're online and so are you. For today's episode, I chatted to a good friend of mine, Jason Schneider, and I've put a little bio in the episode description for this episode. But Jason and I spent some time chatting about coping with online life as someone with ADHD. And I'd say we jump straight in. Enjoy. So, Jason, the first question, which I'm really curious to hear about, is at what point did you realize that ADHD was shaping the way that you live online?
Oh, there's multiple facets to that question. Because one, I'm hearing the question about how does ADHD affect your life? And then two, how do you deal with it online? Because for me, I didn't realize that I had ADHD until about 3 years ago. And for your listeners, I'm 47. So, I found this out in my mid 40s. And it was one of those that when I recognized it, almost everybody close to me was like, "You're just figuring this out now? Like, are you serious?" So, for me, how it's affected my online life. I don't know. This is the only life I've ever had. This is just what I do. But what's been really helpful is getting the diagnosis has helped me think through my systems with a little bit of a different lens, because what what productivity and presence and functioning in the world as well as online for works for a lot of people wasn't seeming to work for me. I'd read productivity advice, I would read, how to do deep work, all of these things, and I wouldn't find the things that worked for me. So I had to start going into ADHD forums and seeing how other people were approaching not letting their online life consume their real human life while still being able to be productive.
If we zoom in a little bit to this point you made of systems that worked for other people didn't work for you, tell me about how you experienced that dissonance.
The diagnosis helped me understand it. The dissonance, like, it's been a part of my life always. I had never, like, the way I would approach work and the things that I would need to do, it just never seemed to work for me, even though everybody was giving me advice and ideas and talking about accountability. And I would try out all of these tools, and, nothing really worked and it just didn't make sense. And so finally, for me, the diagnosis gave me a little bit more permission to kind of look into my own systems and recognize that I needed different ways of handling it. And in a lot of ways, it was about the keeping my attention focused, because I want to focus on so many things simultaneously and figuring out those systems for me. So, like, I've always felt there was a disconnect. And, for a long time, especially somebody who gets diagnosed in middle age, I always thought or had this vague feeling that I was broken. If I couldn't do these things, because I'm a pretty ambitious person, I'm pretty goal oriented in a lot of ways, and I can get them done, but it's very organic, it's very messy, it's very chaotic. People hate working with me. I hate working with other people, and that's always been a major problem. And getting diagnosed, my personality hasn't shifted, but the way I work has really shifted and been much easier to work with people and clients and such.
How did your digital habits or your life online change between pre ADHD and post ADHD diagnosis? In other words, how did knowing ADHD shift how you interact with online life?
That's an interesting question. I don't know if it was a specific shift because of the diagnosis, but I will say over the last 5 years, so even pre-diagnosis state, I realized that social media was not a great space for me to be in. Um, I don't think it's a great space for anybody to be in, but having a hard time constantly wanting to stay connected and see all the things that were going on. So about 5 years ago, and it's kind of come and gone, but more or less, I've gotten to a point now where I have zero social media on my phone. So I have no apps on my phone, and I don't have the login for the browser to those apps on my phone. And on my desktop, I use only one browser specifically for social media, and that's not the browser that I tend to use day to day. So like I use Brave for most of my things, both work and personal. But then when it comes to social media, I open up Safari over here. So it's just it always adds an extra step or two or three in the process that makes me like while doing the steps like, wait, what am I doing? I don't have time for this. I'm not really interested in this. I don't really care about it. Move on.
So you said that making it harder by adding in steps helped in terms of reducing how often you engage with social media. But I mean, tell me what that looked like actually practically, because theoretically, I'm thinking you could just open Safari anywhere if you wanted to.
Now this is great because you're a designer, and for your listeners that are unaware, I do a lot of like government program designs. So it's how do people interact with things? You don't put your buy now button 3 clicks or 4 clicks away. You put it right in the front. And so to me, if having it on a different browser is essentially burying it 3 or 4 clicks or pages away, that buy now button. And so it just, those clicks, it kind of like, a lot of people are like, just put your running shoes by the door and then just put your running shoes on. And like, it makes it that much easier. To me, it's just having it a little less convenient to access is a tremendous help because the way my mind works is to let go of something that I'm doing in one space and opening up a new space in that intermediate 3 seconds 5 seconds. My brain has gone in 7 different directions and has already decided that these other things are more important than scrolling through social media.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically leveraging ADHD for what ADHD does best in that sense. I think you alluded to it earlier, but since being online is just distracting by nature because of the, you know, reason that you have everything at your fingertips and at your disposal. I know myself, I start looking for a YouTube video to work to, and I end up going down a rabbit hole of saving other YouTube videos for watch later and blah, blah, blah. I feel like that's even more pronounced for someone with ADHD.
I suppose yes. I have found ways to prevent myself from going down that path, and I don't think it's any hard and fast rules, but generally I try and find so like YouTube, I'm not even logged into YouTube. I don't use YouTube for anything practically, except for maybe watching The Daily Show while I'm having lunch. Something like that. So it's only having one thing open at a time, whether it's one window, one project, one service, one tool. I generally only, unless I need two windows to work on the same thing, I just have one thing open. And it's really a matter for me of prioritizing and keeping the distractions as little as possible. So like, I don't have a weather thing up. I don't have, nothing from emails don't ping. They don't make a sound. There's no notifications that come across. On my phone, I have all badges, notification, everything is turned off. I have to open the app to see if there's anything new. I don't have, other than direct text messaging, I have nothing that pings me at all. I have to go to it to find it rather than being pulled in a direction. I don't open my phone and see all the things.
Right. I mean, you're very intentionally reclaiming your attention and not giving yourself the opportunity to be distracted by the notifications by simply switching them off. I mean, that's just a useful digital habit for anyone, even if you don't have ADHD. But while we're talking about digital habits, walk me through what the first 60 minutes of your online habits look like each day.
Now, this is interesting because there's like the first 60 minutes of the day, and then there's the first 60 minutes of work, which are different things. So of my day, half the times it's turning on a podcast while I'm having my morning coffee, sitting around having coffee, listening to a podcast, usually something that is more on Buddhism, meditation, something that actually kind of quiets and calms my brain. Um, those are a number of days. There's a number of days that I also scroll Reddit to just kind of get a feel of what's going on in the world, which, as being an American, that is probably something I shouldn't be doing because my nation is a bit of a shit show at the moment. So it's really easy to go down those rabbit holes and be pulled in a number of emotional directions before the day starts. So that's about half my days, and I try not to, but it's still, you can't not watch the train wreck that it is. Um, but on the work day, what was really transformational for me, and this was probably 4 or 5 years before diagnosis, was David Allen's getting things done methodology. It completely shifted my life and ability to focus in so many ways. And, I'm not going to get too into it because I know we're limited on time, but it's really about every idea that comes to your brain needs to, every to do, every project, every email you need to send, every, I need to check in with mom, whatever it is. Every single thing needs to be captured as quickly and easily as possible. So, I've got that system. And so throughout the day previous, I'm just constantly collecting all those random thoughts that pop into my brain. And so I've got a pretty fast way of downloading those. And then in the morning, before I do anything, what I do is I open my email, and there's going to be anywhere between 10 and 40 emails, and I quickly review them. If they're referenced, they go into a folder for reference. If they're anything that requires something to be done, I forward them into my custom built getting things done methodology, which I use Evernote for, but so just gets forwarded into Evernote. And then after zeroing out my inbox, so that's like the first 10 minutes of my day, I will zero out my inbox completely. And then I go over to Evernote and I look at all the things that are in my inbox in Evernote, which are the ideas that I gave to it the day before, as well as any emails that have come through. And I go through and I tag, prioritize, and categorize every single item based on how soon it needs to be done. Is it a personal thing? Is it a work thing? Is it a grocery list thing? So that I only see the pertinent to-dos contextually, and I don't see my list of 800 things. I only see the like 3 things that have to be done today. And then if those get done, then I move into the next thing, which is, the next down the priority, and I'll move a few things into today and I'll do those. And so it automatically feeds me what I need to focus on because I've already pre-sorted it. So I never ever end up coming, out of a meeting like this one and being like, shoot, what do I want to do now? It's like, nope, you already have a line of things. Just pick the next one and do it. And it has made things infinitely easier. So that's like probably the first 20, 30 minutes of my day. And then I try and focus on more of the deep work side. I look at the things that really are like, do I need to write a proposal? Do I need to write a report? Do I like, what is the big chunk? And I start there. And that's my first hour.
Have you found that those apps that like block apps from opening or that track your time have been useful for you?
I've tried them. I think they're all junk. Like I know that they work for some people, most of these things are because people are trying to solve their own problems and it works for them. For me, no, it really doesn't work. I find I can procrastinate a lot by researching apps that I think will make my life better. And I lose all this time thinking, like, researching the app, setting the app up, trying to use it. And then in 3 weeks, I'm like, great, I just lost like 7 hours trying to do this thing that I just don't care about because my systems work fine.
Would you say that's because the apps are just easy to break through, or because your system's better, or is there another reason?
I don't necessarily think the system I've built is better. I remember hearing somebody saying, what was it? The diet that you can stick to is better than the perfect diet. And my system works for me without overly constraining. I don't feel that, I don't feel like I'm having to push myself to stay focused. It keeps me going. When I try and add more and more structure to it, I find that I hate the structure. I don't like to follow it. I don't want to open the thing. I was just having a chat with my accountant the other day about tracking hours for projects. And, tracking hours for like ongoing project, like I'm not going to have a timer in the top corner and be like, okay, I'm now working on that. That's like, no, I'm just not going to do it. On a personal level, I'm going through some GI issues and some gastrointestinal issues. And my doctor got me on an app where I could start tracking all of my meals. And I'm like, I'm going to have to enter things like 10 times a day. No, that's not happening. Let alone taking the time to figure out, like, oh, I just ordered this dish at a restaurant. Let me enter every ingredient that went into it, and I'm like, that's just not how my brain works. I'm sorry. It'd be great. That's just not how my brain works.
I think this is really interesting to just zoom into for a second. We're talking about meal tracking and food tracking in the moment, but I think it can apply to any kind of logging or tracking or needing to diligently write down each and every step. In cases where you have to do that, how do you deal with that?
Honestly, like the reason that Evernote, the system for getting things done in Evernote, works really well for me is particularly like on my phone, it is the bottom right button. It is the closest to my thumb. I hit it and it automatically, like, it opens the app and it starts a new note, and I can give a voice dictation or just a quick type, and it's captured. I don't have to go two or three places in. I don't have to like open a calendar app and create a new. I don't have to do any of that. It reduces those clicks essentially. And so to me, like tracking diet, for example, or tracking hours, it's whatever is the fastest way to capture that without me having to pause and think. So, like, for example, last night I was out at dinner. I had I had a bourbon cocktail and fried chicken, mashed potatoes, peas, pretty standard American diet, but with a gravy. And to I would have to enter in each one of those and like what portion. It would be great to be able to just snap a picture of it and just have it say, you know, this is what I see. Are you eating it now? Boom, done. And like, so it's reducing the amount of effort that it takes to go in. Because I was out with a friend, like, I don't want to pause our conversation with a dear friend that I haven't seen in 2 weeks to like, hold on, let me enter all my things. It's just it's just not how I'm wired. It's really, really hard to do it.
I mean, just hearing you talk now, and you mentioned a Buddhism podcast earlier, but it almost feels like a life of minimalism can be really useful, especially when it comes to living online with ADHD. Since we're talking about ADHD being sensitive to distraction from a multitude, trying to streamline and cut down and essentialize one's life into singular apps as opposed to jumping between multitudes of apps can be really, really useful.
Yeah, let me explain it this way. When I started suspecting that I had ADHD was, about 4 or 5 years ago, and in most of the states, THC, cannabis, marijuana is legal recreationally, and I started using some specifically to help me sleep. But the time dilation effects of being stoned before going to sleep, I'd be listening to an audiobook and I would think that I lost my place in the audiobook because I went down 5, 6, 10 rabbit holes and I stopped paying attention to the audiobook. And then my attention would come back to the audiobook and I'm in the same sentence of the audiobook, but I had gone down like 7 different intellectual rabbit holes that, something that I heard in the audiobook made me think. And so what that told me is I can have multiple complete thoughts in between thinking I didn't open an app and opening the app. And being able to monitor that, I find that what happens is when I go to log something, the the time between recognizing I need to log it, opening something to log it, then actually doing the logging, I'll have 20 to 50 thoughts in different directions beyond what it is that I'm logging. And at least one or two of them are more interesting than the logging. So I cease logging and start going down the other direction. And so to me, that was really the indicator of like the the more I can reduce the time between thinking a thing and doing the thing, the harder it will be to be distracted by something else that pops into my brain in the process.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with friends and family that you think might find it interesting too. And if you're feeling super, super nice, then leave a review. It would be super appreciated. And yeah, I'd smile a lot. But thank you, and hopefully see you on the next episode.